Hey guys, it's Dimitri here from Low Tutoring, and today I've decided to make this video to discuss a few things you should be doing in the upcoming holidays, as well as an actual analysis of an actual piece. So, firstly, to start off with, I'd just like to say as we come to the end of term one, it's now time to self-reflect, and also do some self-assessment. So, what I mean by this is you have to ask yourself, what went well this term? Where did you get really great marks? And then in addition, you've also got to ask yourself, well, what didn't go so well this term? And then how could you improve on those weaknesses so those same problems don't happen again? And in addition, you should be asking yourself, did I make use of study time effectively, and have I developed good study habits? And if you haven't developed good study habits now is a time to refresh yourself to actually do it properly, because once term two hits, that's when the work really starts to pile on. If you thought term one was hard, term two does get a lot harder. And I mean that in a nice way. It just means anticipate it, prepare for it. As long as you have strategies in place to rest, to work hard, to know where to improve, to even know where your strengths are, you'll do well for the next few months leading up, or next few terms leading up to the exam. So with that out of the way, basically today the main purpose of this video is to get you started into formal language. Now, by now, most, if not all, schools would have finished informal language and would be progressing to Unit 3, Area Study 2, formal language. I know some schools do have an informal language stack in the first few weeks of Term 2, but for the purposes of, well, to ensure that most people can understand this video, we're going to be focusing more on formal language. So, the first thing I'd like you guys to do is to go through the study design. The link, everything I speak about today, it'll be linked in the video. Go through the study design and highlight the key terms of formal language. This will definitely give you a competitive advantage. Okay, secondly, I'd like you to go through another article I wrote a few months ago on formal language and its purposes. Have a really good detailed read through that. It'll just allow me to put everything into context so you understand what I'm talking about. Okay, and lastly, I'd also like you to go through the image on screen. So basically, what I'm going to be going through today is about 2 months ago, I received my yearly rego bill for a grand total of $700. And obviously, you know, I'm not happy, I don't have to pay this, but that's one of the joys of life. When you own a car, you need to pay registration. And as I went to turn this over, I noticed at the bottom of the bill, they had information on concession card holders. And it was very formal in nature, and I thought this would probably be very relevant for you guys to see how governments in particular, like in this case Vic Roads, how they use formal language and the purposes behind it. So firstly, read through the image in the article and take note of some features yourself before watching the rest of this video. Now once you've done that, I can then start to talk about some of the formal language features. So, some of the main features that I noticed in this particular text were mainly to do with lexicology, syntax, some semantics, and discourse. Really, phonology in this case is obviously not really relevant at all. So, with formal language, it's really good to kind of focus on certain subsystems. So, the function of this text here is basically to inform. So, the main purpose that Vic Roads has published this concession card article is to inform the customers about the various rules and regulations and terms and conditions regarding concession card holders. Now, the main reason this, for the wider social purpose, I believe, is because they want to prevent people from exploiting a discounted price. If they weren't clear regarding concession card rules and regulations, what would happen is everyone would be taking advantage of the loophole and be paying a discounted price. For concession card holders, they only pay $632 versus $771 for the average person. So that's quite a big saving. So if these rules were not clear, i.e. if they were ambiguous, then people could take advantage of it. So remember that the purpose of formal language is to be clear to the target audience and to prevent legal exploitation in this case. So without further ado, let's go into the subsystems. So firstly, with regards to the subsystem of lexicology, I noticed that there was a frequent use of modal verbs. So in particular, like the use of must, the use of will, and so forth. Basically what this does is it helps to indicate modality, that is likelihood, ability, permission, and obligation. And these ultimately help to provide specificity of meaning to customers. I also noticed the use of uncontracted verb forms. So when we're speaking, we often contract our verbs. You're for you are, where for we are. However, in this particular piece, there are no contracted verb forms. And the reason for that, again, goes back to the purpose being to inform and to ensure specificity of meaning. So that can be seen in, for example, if you have recently become a holder versus if you've. Okay, next we've also got elevated lexemes. So basically those fancy sounding words, those big, smart people words. You'll notice that much of the lexicon evident comes from Latin and French. So all these, smart people words are all oftentimes of Latin and French origin. What this helps the author do is to give the text a serious and official tone. That is a tone of authority and expertise. So examples include concession, entitlements, request. And actually, on the topic of request, or with regards to request, you'll notice that Vic Rhodes uses this lexeme instead of demand. Sorry guys, I've got a pretty bad cold today, but I'm pushing through. Instead of demand and even ask. So in there's a little short fees, the paragraph's entitled short fees. It says here, Vic Rhodes will write to you to request payment of the full registration fee. Now Vic Rhodes says that they will request payment versus demand payment. Now request is a nicer sounding word. It has positive connotations compared to ask, which would be neutral, and demand, which would be more negative. And the reason for this is it allows Vic Rhodes to appeal to your negative face needs and not impose on your freedom. So always remember that money can be construed as a taboo topic in many societies. So when asking for payment, many companies and governments will ultimately use less forceful language to appeal to negative face needs. So again, guys, I've got an article which I wrote on this a few months ago. So revisit that article if you are struggling with the differences between positive and negative face needs, and I'll link it in the article too. Okay, now onto the subsystem of semantics. So basically, with regards to semantics, I noticed the biggest observation was the use of passive and agentless passive sentences. So, for example, if your concession card is not valid on payment of the fee for registration, if paid before or on the registration expiry date. If paid, by who? Now, this actually came from the short fees paragraph, the same paragraph I was talking about before. And you'll notice that if paid, it doesn't say by who. Now, what this ultimately does is it allows the author to create a distant tone between the author and the audience, thereby depersonalizing the text. So what I mean by depersonalizing is it omits the subject, gets rid of the agent, and makes the text less personal. You don't feel a human connection with the text because there's no personality behind it. Okay, and in addition to that, in terms of syntax, I also noticed normalization. Now, normalization is the idea that we convert a word class into a noun. Now, what this often does in academic writing and in legal writing and so forth is it allows the author to condense writing down, makes writing very condensed and more concise. And in addition to that, it also allows him, much like agentless passives, to create a distant tone because there's no human element. So, for example, if we go back to the short fees paragraph over there, you'll notice it says, if your concession card is not valid on the payment of the fee for registration, so is not valid on payment by who? So payment in this case is a nominalization because it's been converted from a verb, to pay, to the noun, the payment. And again, what this does is it creates that impersonal tone the author's trying to create. And that is why these nominalizations, agentless passives, and so forth sound formal to the audience. Okay, we're going to end on, for syntax, compound complex sentence structures. Now, many students have asked me, why is it that compound complex sentence structures are formal, and why is it that simple or fragmented sentences are more informal? Now, the reason comes down to the clarity of information and also the condensation of information. So in formal documents, particularly legal documents, long sentences or compound complex sentence structures are very common. The main reason is it basically this asserts that by packaging content so close together, it therefore allows the author to show clarity of information by displaying the relationship between ideas. It also elevates a writer's credibility too. So in our same paragraph example, which I was talking about before, the short fees paragraph, you'll notice that what they actually do is the whole sentence, the whole paragraph is actually one sentence, and it's a very big sentence at that. Now, for the purposes of that paragraph, what it does is it allows the author to show the various conditions of payment, i.e., you pay at this time, to again ensure clarity of information so there is no ambiguity regarding when payment should be made. So I'll read it to you again. If your concession card is not valid on payment of the fee for registration if paid before or on the registration expiry date or at the start date of the new registration period, Vic Rose will write to you to request payment of the full registration fee. So this is obviously compound complex. There are two dependent clauses and two independent clauses and one dependent clause. And what this ultimately allows the author to do is show those conditions of payment. So if your concession card is not valid on payment at the date, payment when it's paid before or on the registration expiry date or at the start, so it creates this clarity of information about when payment should be made. Okay, now with regards to discourse, I'm going to finish up here because I want to ensure this video doesn't get too long. I'm just going to focus on coherence for now. For cohesion, I'd like you guys to come up with your own cohesive devices and put it in the description, in the comments, and I'll be able to check that for you. So you'll notice that this author uses a ton of paragraphs and also dot points too. And this is known as formatting, which comes under coherence. And what it does, it allows the author to highlight key information. For example, the rules about concession card holders uses dot points. So the dot points here ensures that you have to satisfy one of these rules to be able to be a concession card holder. And again, what that does is it links back to the informative function to ensure that clarity of information. Okay, that's it, guys. So that is my brief analysis of my Vic Rhodes certificate of registration invoice, and hopefully that helps out, guys. As I said, throughout the holidays, what I'm going to recommend you do is go through the study design, go through the purposes of formal language, and also start to observe in the real world your own examples of formal language. So go have a look at one of your parents' invoices from an electricity company or the Telstra bill or something like that, and actually have a look at the terms and conditions on the invoice, or if there are certain payment rules, have a look at that and ask yourself, why is this language formal? Perception and awareness is what will allow you to do really well in formal language. As many students told me that they personally found Unit 3 Area Study 2 the hardest because it's the hardest to connect to as humans. So hopefully that helps out, guys, and I'll continue to be posting more videos as the year goes by. Thanks.